Captain Jake Morrison stared at the readings on his screen. Something was wrong. The numbers didn't make sense. "Amy, check the sensors again," he called to his chief engineer. "These energy readings can't be right." Amy Rodriguez looked up from her console. Her dark hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail after 12 hours of work. "I've checked them 3 times, Captain. The readings are correct. There's something out there giving off more power than our entire ship." Jake rubbed his tired eyes. The crew of the Aurora had been exploring this asteroid field for 2 weeks. Earth Command wanted them to map every rock bigger than a house. It was boring work, but someone had to do it. Now they had found something that shouldn't exist. "Lisa, what do you think?" Jake asked the ship's science officer, Dr. Lisa Parker, pushed her glasses up her nose, and studied the data. She was young for a doctor, only 32, but she knew more about old things than anyone Jake had ever met. She collected ancient coins and pottery in her spare time. "The energy signature is unlike anything I've seen," Lisa said slowly. "It's not natural. Someone made whatever is out there." Lieutenant Ben Carter looked up from his navigation station. "Captain, the object is about 2 miles long. It's hidden behind asteroid AC-447. We almost missed it." Jake felt his heart beat faster. In all his years flying between planets, he had never found anything like this. Humans had been traveling in space for almost 100 years now. They had colonies on Mars and mining stations in the asteroid belt. But they had never found proof that other beings existed. "Take us closer, Ben. Nice and slow." The Aurora moved forward through the floating rocks. Jake watched the main screen as asteroid AC-447 grew larger. It was a dark chunk of iron and stone about the size of a city block. But as they flew around it, Jake saw something that made him catch his breath. A ship floated in space behind the asteroid. But calling it a ship was like calling an ocean a puddle. The thing was massive. It was black as space itself, with smooth curves that seemed to flow like water. Strange symbols covered its surface, glowing with a soft blue light. "My God," Amy whispered. "Look at the size of that thing." Lisa leaned forward in her chair. "Jake, we need to get closer. I need to study those markings." "Is it safe?" Jake asked. "Any signs of life?" Amy checked her readings. No power signatures except for those strange energy patterns. No movement, no communications. "If anyone is alive in there, they're not using any technology I understand." Jake made his decision. "Ben, take us to within 500 feet. Amy, keep the engines ready for a quick exit. Lisa, start recording everything." As they moved closer, more details became clear. The alien ship was beautiful in a way that made Jake's chest tight. It looked like art more than technology. The blue symbols seemed to pulse like a heartbeat. Along the ship's side, they could see what looked like docking bays. "Captain," Lisa said, her voice shaking with excitement. "Those symbols, they're not random. They follow patterns. This is writing. A language. Can you read it?" "Not yet." "But Jake, some of these patterns, they remind me of things I've seen before. Very old things. Cave paintings. Ancient stone carvings. It's probably just my imagination, but..." Suddenly, the symbols on the alien ship began to glow brighter. The pulsing got faster. "Amy, what's happening?" Jake asked. "The energy readings are spiking. Something is powering up in there. Should we run?" Before Amy could answer, a beam of soft blue light reached out from the alien ship and touched the Aurora. Jake felt a strange tingling in his mind, like someone was gently knocking on a door in his head. Then he heard it, not through his ears, but directly in his thoughts. A voice that sounded ancient and tired. "Welcome home, children of Earth." Ben spun around in his chair. Did everyone else hear that? Lisa nodded, her face pale. It spoke to us, in our minds. The voice came again, warmer this time. We have waited so long for you to find us. You are ready now, ready to remember. Remember what? Jake asked out loud, feeling silly for talking to empty space. Who you really are. The blue light grew brighter. Jake felt knowledge flowing into his mind. Images of Earth as it was millions of years ago. Pictures of humans who looked like them, but were somehow more. Beings who could build ships that crossed between stars as easily as walking across a room. The sleep was necessary, the voice continued. The galaxy was in danger. We had to hide. We had to forget. But now the danger has passed. Now you can wake up. Jake looked at his crew. They all had the same amazed expression on their faces. Amy's hands were shaking as she stared at her console. Ben was writing down symbols that seemed to appear in his mind. Lisa was crying. I don't understand, Jake said. You will. Take your ship to Earth. Tell your leaders what you have found. The galaxy will soon know that humanity has returned. Some will welcome you. Others will fear you. But all will know that the children of the builders have awakened. The light faded. The alien ship went dark again. But Jake knew everything had changed. In the space of a few minutes, humanity had gone from being alone in the universe to being something much more important than they had ever imagined. Ben, set course for Earth. Best speed. Yes, sir. As the Aurora turned toward home, Jake wondered how he would explain this to Earth Command. How do you tell an entire planet that they might not be who they think they are? How do you explain that finding an alien ship was just the beginning of something much bigger? Behind them, the ancient ship waited in the dark. It had waited for millions of years. It could wait a little longer for its children to come home. 3 weeks after the Aurora returned to Earth, the aliens came. Captain Jake Morrison stood in the war room deep under Washington, D.C. Around the table sat the most powerful people on Earth. President Nancy Miller looked tired. General Patricia Hayes kept checking her watch. Dr. Kevin Walsh, the planet's best language expert, was reading through Jake's reports for the 100th time. Are you sure about what you heard? President Miller asked. Jake nodded. The voice was clear. It called us children of Earth and said we were ready to remember. Dr. Parker has been studying the data nonstop. She thinks the alien ship is millions of years old. And now we have visitors, General Hayes said, pointing at the big screen on the wall. The screen showed space above Earth. 12 large ships hung there like silver daggers. They had arrived that morning without warning. No one on Earth had seen them coming. They've been trying to talk to us for 6 hours, Dr. Walsh said. The language is complex, but I think I understand the basic message. They want to meet. President Miller rubbed her forehead. What do they want to meet about? Before anyone could answer, the lights in the room dimmed. A figure appeared in the center of the table. It was a hologram, but so real that Jake, almost Ian, reached out to touch it. The alien was tall and thin, with gray skin and large black eyes. It wore flowing robes that seemed to move like water. When it spoke, its voice was musical but cold. Greetings, primitive ones of Earth. I am Ambassador Cathara of the Zephyrian Collective. We have come to welcome you to the galaxy. President Miller stood up slowly. We welcome you to Earth, Ambassador. I am President Miller. The alien tilted its head like a bird studying a bug. You are the leader of your kind? How quaint. We have watched your species for some time. You have just learned to travel between your own planets. Very impressive for such a young race. Jake felt his jaw clench. There was something in the alien's voice that reminded him of a teacher talking to a slow child. We offer you a great gift, Cathara continued. The Zephyrian Collective will help. Your species grow. We will teach you proper technology. We will show you how civilized beings behave. In time, perhaps in a few thousand years, you may be ready to join the galaxy as junior members. General Hayes leaned forward. Junior members? Of course. Your species is very new to space travel. You know nothing of galactic law or proper behavior. You will need guidance. Much guidance. We have helped many young species in the past. Most are grateful for our wisdom. Dr. Walsh cleared his throat. What kind of guidance? The alien's expression became even more condescending. We will place monitoring stations around your planet to ensure you do not hurt yourselves with dangerous technology. We will limit your space travel to your own solar system until you prove you are responsible. We will teach you proper languages so you can communicate with advanced species. Your current languages are very primitive. Jake felt anger building in his chest. What if we don't want your help? Cathara looked at him with something that might have been amusement. Young one, you do not understand. This is not a choice. Your species has entered the galactic community. You must follow galactic law. The collective has the responsibility to protect the galaxy from dangerous primitives. President Miller's voice was carefully controlled. We appreciate your offer, Ambassador, but we would like time to consider it. Of course, you have one of your weeks to decide. But understand, there is only one correct choice. Accept our guidance, or be contained until you are more mature. The hologram disappeared. The room was quiet for a long moment. Then General Hayes slammed her hand on the table. Did that thing just threaten us? It thinks we're children, President Miller said quietly. Dangerous children who need to be controlled. Jake thought about the ancient ship waiting in the asteroid belt, about the voice that had called them children of Earth, but in a completely different way. That voice had sounded proud. This alien sounded like humanity was a problem to be solved. What do we know about these Zephyrians? He asked. Dr. Walsh pulled up files on his tablet. I've been researching since they arrived. They're part of something called the Galactic Collective. It seems to be a group of older alien species who think they run the galaxy. They've helped dozens of younger races over the past few thousand years. What kind of help? General Hayes asked. The kind that never seems to end. Every species they've helped is still being helped. None of them have ever graduated to full membership in the collective. President Miller stood and walked to the window. Outside, she could see one of the alien ships hanging in the sky like a dark cloud. What about the ship Jake found? The ancient one? Jake looked around the room. Ma'am, I think we should go back to it. The voice said we were ready to remember. Maybe it can tell us more about what we're really dealing with. The aliens might follow us, General Hayes warned. Let them, Jake said. I have a feeling that ancient ship knows more about these Zephyrians than they know about it. President Miller nodded slowly. Do it. Take the Aurora back to the asteroid field, but be careful. If these Zephyrians are as controlling as they seem, they won't like us exploring on our own. Dr. Walsh looked up from his tablet. There's something else. I've been studying the Zephyrian language. It's built on mathematical principles that are very advanced. But some of the root structures, they're familiar. Very familiar. What do you mean? Jake asked. I mean, their language might be based on something much older. Something that influenced human languages too. It's like, imagine if English and French both came from the same ancient source, but one of them forgot where it came from. Jake felt that strange tingling in his mind again, the same feeling he'd had near the ancient ship. Ideas that weren't quite his own were trying to surface. We need to get back to that ship, he said. Soon. As Jake left the war room, he couldn't shake the feeling that the Zephyrians had made a very big mistake. They thought humanity was primitive. They thought humans needed guidance and control. But what if they were wrong? What if humanity wasn't a young species stumbling into space, but something much older, just waking up from a very long sleep? Outside, the alien ships waited in the sky like patient predators. They had given humanity 1 week to accept their guidance. Jake wondered if 1 week would be enough time for humanity to remember who they really were. Dr. Rachel Brooks stared at the blood test results for the 3rd time. The numbers should have been impossible, but there they were on her screen in black and white. "This can't be right," she whispered to herself. She was alone in her lab beneath the Colorado mountains. Above her, the world was dealing with the Zephyrian ultimatum. Below, Rachel was discovering that humanity might not be human at all. The blood samples had come from Captain Morrison and his crew after their return from the alien ship. At first, everything looked normal. Then Rachel had run deeper tests. Looking at the genetic level, what she found changed everything. Human DNA had extra pieces, sections that looked like they were switched off, waiting for something to turn them on. But the most shocking part was what those sections contained. They held instructions for abilities that no human should have: enhanced brain function, perfect memory, the ability to understand complex technology just by touching it, and something else, something that made Rachel's hands shake as she read the data: the genetic instructions for telepathy. "Impossible," she said again. But the evidence was right there. Her computer chimed. A message from Commander Steve Johnson, head of the secret project studying the alien ship's data. "Rachel, we need you in the main lab. Bring everything you've found, all of it." Rachel gathered her files and took the elevator deeper into the mountain. The main lab was buzzing with activity. Scientists from around the world had been brought here in secret. They were studying the information Captain Morrison's team had brought back from the ancient ship. Commander Johnson met her at the door. He was a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes. "What did you find?" "Something that shouldn't exist," Rachel said. "The crew's DNA has been changed. Not damaged, changed. Like someone edited on purpose." Johnson nodded grimly. "That matches what we've learned from the ship's data. Come see this." He led her to a large screen showing a map of the solar system. But this wasn't any map Rachel had seen before. It showed hidden structures throughout the system, bases on asteroids, technology buried under the ice on Europa, ancient machinery sleeping in the depths of space. "The ship's computer has been downloading information to us," Johnson explained. "Slowly, carefully, like it doesn't want to overload our minds. But the picture it's painting is incredible." "What kind of picture?" Dr. Lisa Parker looked up from a nearby console. She had been living in the lab for days, studying the alien symbols. "The picture of a civilization that spanned the galaxy. One that built most of the structures we thought were natural. And Rachel... they were human." Rachel felt the world spin around her. "That's impossible. Humans evolved on Earth. We have fossil records going back millions of years." "The fossils are real," Lisa said, "but they're not the whole story. According to this data, modern humans are the descendants of an ancient human civilization that ruled the galaxy long ago. But something happened, something terrible." Johnson pulled up another display. It showed a timeline stretching back millions of years. They called it the Dark Convergence, a cosmic event that destroyed advanced civilizations across the galaxy, not through war or disease, but through their own technology. How? We're still piecing it together. But it seems like advanced civilizations became dependent on artificial intelligence and quantum technology. When the Dark Convergence happened, all of that technology turned against its creators. The more advanced a species was, the more completely it was destroyed. Rachel looked at the timeline. At the end of the destruction period, she saw a small notation. "What's this?" "The Great Sleep," Lisa said softly. The human civilization that survived made a choice. They voluntarily gave up their technology. They altered their own genetics to remove their advanced abilities. They scattered across the galaxy and went into hiding, pretending to be primitive species on dozens of different worlds. They chose to forget who they were. It was the only way to survive. The dark convergence couldn't destroy what wasn't there. So they made themselves appear primitive until the danger passed. Johnson walked to another console, but they built safeguards. Ships like the one Morrison found. Hidden bases throughout this system. And they edited the human genome so that when the time was right, their descendants could remember. Rachel felt pieces clicking together in her mind. The genetic changes I found in Morrison's crew, ... The awakening process has begun. Contact with the ancient ship triggered dormant genetic sequences. Captain Morrison and his team are becoming what humans used to be. And the Zephyrians? Lisa laughed, but there was no humor in it. They're one of the species that survived the dark convergence by never becoming very advanced in the first place. They've spent the last 1,000,000 years thinking they're the smartest beings in the galaxy. They've built their entire civilization on reverse engineering technology left behind by the species that died. Technology built by humans, Rachel realized. Exactly. They're using human-designed technology to condescend to humans. The irony is incredible. Johnson's expression grew serious. But there's a problem. The awakening process is spreading. Other humans are beginning to show the same genetic changes. Our monitoring stations have detected similar energy signatures at 3 other locations in the system. Ancient human technology is waking up. Is that bad? Not bad, but dangerous. If the Zephyrians realize what's happening, they might panic. They've based their entire civilization on being the most advanced species. Learning that the primitives they're trying to control are actually their technological superiors could cause them to do something stupid. Rachel looked around the lab at all the scientists working frantically to understand their own species' history. How long before the awakening spreads to the general population? Based on the genetic markers we're seeing, maybe weeks. The process seems to be accelerating. And Morrison's crew? They're changing rapidly. Yesterday, Lieutenant Carter figured out how to operate a piece of alien technology just by touching it. Dr. Parker can read the ancient symbols like they're written in English. And Captain Morrison, ... What about him? Johnson pulled up a security recording from earlier that day. It showed Morrison standing in front of a piece of ancient technology. As they watched, the device lit up and began displaying star maps. He's developing telepathic abilities. He can communicate with the ancient ship's computer without any external interface. And the computer is responding to him like he's an old friend coming home. Rachel watched the recording with growing amazement and fear. The Zephyrians want an answer in 4 days. I know. The question is, do we tell them we're just confused primitives who need their guidance? Or do we tell them the truth? What's the truth? Lisa looked up from her work. The truth is that humanity built most of the galaxy's infrastructure. The truth is that we chose to sleep until the danger passed. The truth is that we're waking up now, and we remember how to build ships that make their entire fleet look like toys. Johnson nodded. The truth is that they've been using our technology to judge our worthiness to join a civilization we created. Rachel felt a strange sensation in her mind. For just a moment, she could sense the thoughts of everyone in the room. She could feel their excitement, their fear, their determination. The awakening was beginning in her too. "Commander," she said quietly, "I don't think we should tell them anything. I think we should let them figure it out for themselves." Johnson smiled for the first time in days. "I was hoping you'd say that." Outside the mountain, The Zephyrian ships waited for humanity's answer. They had no idea that the answer was already being written in the genetic code of every human on Earth. Lieutenant Ben Carter knew he was in trouble the moment the Zephyrian inspector ship appeared on his sensors. He was piloting a small research craft to one of the hidden ancient sites that humanity had discovered in the asteroid belt. The site was supposed to be secret, but as Ben watched the alien ship change course toward him, he realized their secrets weren't as hidden as they had hoped. "This is Inspector Velthan of the Zephyrian Collective," came a cold voice over the radio. "Human vessel, you are in violation of the movement restrictions placed on your species. Prepare to be boarded." Ben felt panic rise in his chest. Then something else took over. It was like a voice in his mind, but the voice was his own, just older and wiser. "Let them come," the voice said. "It's time they learned the truth." Ben found, his hands moving over controls he didn't remember learning to use. The research ship's systems came alive in ways that should have been impossible. Hidden panels opened, revealing technology that definitely wasn't human-made. At least, not the kind of human-made technology that Earth was supposed to have. The Zephyrian ship docked with his vessel. Ben waited calmly as 3 tall gray aliens in environmental suits entered his ship. Velthan was even more arrogant in person than over the radio. "Primitive human, you have violated collective law by traveling beyond your permitted zone. You will be taken for questioning." "I don't think so," Ben said quietly. The alien laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "You think you have a choice? Your species has 3 more days to accept our guidance. Until then, you will follow our rules." Ben stood up slowly. As he did, lights began to appear along the walls of his ship. The lights formed symbols that seemed to move and shift like living things. The 3 aliens stopped laughing. "Those symbols," one of them whispered. "They're architect markings." Inspector Velthan stepped closer to the wall, his large black eyes wide with shock. "Impossible. The architects vanished millions of years ago. These must be copies. Poor copies." "Are they?" Ben asked. He reached out and touched one of the symbols. The entire ship shuddered as ancient systems came online. The lights grew brighter, and the symbols began to pulse in complex patterns. Ben felt knowledge flowing into his mind. Not his knowledge, but the knowledge of his ancestors. The humans who had built ships that could cross the galaxy in days. Who had designed the quantum networks that still connected every star system. Who had created the very technology the Zephyrians now used to claim superiority over younger races. "The architects didn't vanish," Ben said, his voice carrying harmonics that made the air itself seem to vibrate. "They chose to sleep, and now they're waking up." Inspector Velthan backed away from the wall. "You're lying. Humans are a primitive species. We've studied you. You've barely learned to travel between planets." Ben smiled. "You've studied what we wanted you to see." He pressed his palm against a larger symbol. The research ship's hull became transparent, showing the ancient human base hidden in the asteroid. But it wasn't hidden anymore. Massive structures unfolded from what had looked like empty rock. Ships the size of cities emerged from concealed docks. Technology that made the Zephyrian vessels look like stone tools. "My God, one of the other." Aliens breathed. "How many sites like this are there?" "Thousands," Ben said. "Throughout this system, throughout the galaxy, waiting for us to come home." Inspector Velthan pulled out what looked like a weapon. "This is impossible. You're primitive. We've been guiding the galaxy for millennia. We know who the advanced species are." Ben looked at the weapon with something that might have been pity. "You've been guiding the galaxy using our technology. The quantum communicators you use to talk across space, we built those. The star charts you follow, we mapped those routes. The energy systems that power your ships, based on designs we left behind when we went to sleep. Lies. Ben touched another symbol. Suddenly, Inspector Velthan's weapon began to glow with the same blue light as the ship's walls. The alien dropped it in shock as information flowed directly into his mind. Ben watched the inspector's face change as the truth hit him. The weapon contained technology with genetic locks keyed to human DNA, technology that would only work for its builders. You see, Ben said gently, your entire civilization has been built on the foundations we left behind. You've spent 1,000,000 years thinking you were the galaxy's teachers, but you've been students all along. Inspector Velthan fell to his knees. The collective must know. They must be warned. Warned about what? We're not your enemies. We never were. We're your teachers, finally coming back to see how you've done. With your lessons. Ben touched a final symbol. Throughout the solar system, hidden human sites began to wake up. Ancient ships powered up their engines. Defensive systems that had slept for millions of years came online. And on Earth, every human with awakened genetics suddenly knew exactly what was happening. Captain Morrison felt it in his command center. Dr. Parker felt it in her lab. President Miller felt it in the White House. The same feeling of ancient. Memories returning, of sleeping giants opening their eyes. Inspector Velthan looked up at Ben with terror in his alien eyes. What are you going to do to us? Ben helped the alien to his feet. What we've always done. What we did before the dark convergence forced us to sleep. We're going to teach. We're going to guide. We're going to protect the younger species from making the same mistakes that once destroyed the galaxy. But the collective, we've claimed authority over ... double quotes. Over what? Over technology you didn't build, using principles you don't fully understand, to guide species you know nothing about. Ben's voice was kind but firm. The children have been playing teacher while the real teachers were asleep. Now class is back in session. Through the transparent hall, they could see more human ships emerging from hidden bases. Ships that moved with impossible grace, their hulls shifting and flowing like liquid metal. Ships that the Zephyrians would later learn could travel between galaxies as easily as crossing a room. Inspector Velthan's communicator crackled to life. Panicked voices from the Zephyrian fleet reported similar discoveries throughout the solar system. Ancient technology awakening. Human ships appearing from nowhere. Energy signatures that matched the legendary architect civilization. Tell your collective, Ben said as the aliens prepared to leave his ship. Tell them the architects have returned. Tell them the age of childhood is over. Tell them it's time to learn from their elders again. As the Zephyrian inspector ship fled back toward their fleet, Ben stood alone in his transformed vessel. Around him, the walls pulsed with the blue light of awakened technology. In his mind, he could hear the voices of awakened humans across. The system dot, they were all saying the same thing, in words that echoed across space itself. We're home. Ambassador Kethera stood on the bridge of the collective flagship, watching his entire worldview crumble. On the main screen, human ships moved through space like living things. They flowed and shifted, their hulls rippling with patterns of light. They were beautiful in a way that made his chest ache, and terrifying in a way that made his hands shake. Sir, his tactical officer reported, we're detecting over 300 human vessels in this system alone. They're using technology we don't recognize. Don't recognize? Kethera snapped. How can we not recognize it? We've studied every advanced technology in the galaxy. Sir, these ships are generating energy signatures that match architect technology, but they're not using architect artifacts. They're generating the signatures themselves. Admiral Zexron, commander of the collective fleet, stepped forward. Are you saying the humans have learned to build architect technology? No, sir. I'm saying they are building with architect technology. Like they invented it. Kethara felt something cold settle in his stomach. For the past week, reports had been flooding in from across the galaxy. Human colonies that had seemed primitive were revealing hidden technology. Human trading posts were expanding into massive space stations overnight. And everywhere, the humans were displaying abilities that should have taken centuries to develop. Incoming transmission, the communications officer announced. It's from the human ship Aurora. On screen, Captain Morrison appeared on the view screen. But he looked different. Now, his eyes held depths that seemed to go on forever. When he spoke, his voice carried harmonics that made the air itself vibrate. Ambassador Kethara, Admiral Zexron, thank you for your patience while we remembered who we are. Captain Morrison, Kethara said, trying to keep his voice steady. Your species appears to have made rapid technological advances. We are prepared to revise our guidance program to account for your progress. Morrison smiled, and there was something ancient in that expression. We appreciate the offer, Ambassador, but we no longer need guidance. Captain, no species develops so quickly without help. What you're displaying is impossible, is it? Tell me, Ambassador, where did your quantum communication technology come from? Kethara blinked. It was developed from architect artifacts discovered millennia ago. And your faster-than-light engines? Also based on architect principles. Your energy weapons, your medical technology, your environmental systems? Admiral Zexron stepped forward. What are you implying, human? Morrison's image was joined by others. Dr. Parker, whose eyes now held the wisdom of someone who had studied the galaxy's oldest secrets. Lieutenant Carter, who radiated a calm confidence that spoke of absolute mastery over his technology. And dozens of other humans, all carrying that same ancient awareness. We're not implying anything, Dr. Parker said. We're stating a fact. Every piece of advanced technology in your civilization came from studying artifacts left behind by the architects. Technology we built, Lieutenant Carter added, before the dark convergence forced us to sleep. The bridge of the collective flagship fell silent. Kethara could hear his own heartbeat in his ears. You're claiming to be the architects? Admiral, Zexron asked. We're claiming to be their descendants, Morrison said. The children of those who chose to sleep rather than die when advanced technology became a curse instead of a blessing. Morrison gestured, and the space around the human ships shimmered. Suddenly, the collective fleet could see the true extent of human presence in the system. Not hundreds of ships, but thousands. Massive stations that had been invisible moments before. Defensive networks that spanned the entire solar system. You see, Morrison continued, we never left. We just learned to hide very well. Kethara felt his legs give out. He sank into his command chair as the implications hit him. The guidance programs. The civilization management protocols. You've been using our technology to judge our readiness to use our technology, Dr. Parker said gently. You've been teaching us lessons we wrote. Admiral Zexron's voice was barely a whisper. How many species have we guided that were actually more advanced than you? Morrison asked. 7 that we know of. 3 others are still sleeping, waiting for the right time to wake up. 2 chose to remain hidden even after awakening. And 1 One? Kethara asked. The Andromedans. You've been trying to uplift them for the past 1,000 years. They've been politely declining because they're busy building a civilization that spans 3 galaxies. On the screen, a new face appeared. A woman with silver hair and eyes like starlight. Hello, Collective, she said with amusement in her voice. I'm Admiral Susan Lee of the Andromedan Cooperative. We've been watching your little guidance program with great interest. Admiral Zexron gripped his console. How many of you are there? Ancient species awakening? Or species that never went to sleep in the first place? Captain Morrison asked. The number might surprise you. More faces appeared on the screen. Beings that looked human, but carried themselves with the confidence of species that had mastered space travel before the collective sun had formed. The thing is, Morrison continued, we don't blame you for thinking you were in charge. You've done well with the technology we left behind. You've maintained peace in your sector of the galaxy. You've helped younger species avoid some of the mistakes that could have destroyed them. But, Dr. Parker added, it's time for you too. Learn that being a teacher requires more than just having old textbooks. Ambassador Cathara found his voice. What happens now? Do you ... do you punish us for our arrogance? Morrison's expression softened. Punish you? For doing your best with the knowledge you had? For trying to help younger species? Why would we punish you for that? Because we tried to control you. We thought you were primitive. You thought you were protecting the galaxy from dangerous primitives, Admiral Lee said. You were wrong about who was primitive, but you were right about wanting to protect the galaxy. Captain Morrison stood up on his bridge. Around him, the Aurora's walls pulsed with soft blue light. Ambassador, the galaxy is vast and full of wonders. There are young species taking their first steps into space. There are ancient threats stirring in the dark between galaxies. There are mysteries to solve and dangers to face. We could use the help of experienced guides, Dr. Parker added. Beings who have spent millennia learning to work with younger species, who understand the importance of patience and careful teaching. Admiral Zexron looked confused. You're offering us a job? We're offering you a partnership, Morrison said. The collective has experience in diplomacy and cultural guidance. We have experience in technology and deep space exploration. Together, we could build something better than either of us could manage alone. Cathara felt something he hadn't experienced in centuries. Hope mixed with humility. And if we refuse? Morrison smiled. Then we part as friends, and you continue doing what you've been doing. We won't interfere with the collective's work in your territories, but we will be watching over the species you guide, just to make sure they're getting the best education possible. Like teachers supervising student teachers, Admiral Lee added with a grin. Through the view screen, Cathara could see human ships moving through space with impossible grace. But now he noticed something else. They weren't positioning themselves as conquerors or overlords. They were arranging themselves as protectors, guardians standing watch over the younger species of the galaxy. One question, Admiral Zexron said. The dark convergence that forced you to sleep, could it happen again? Morrison's expression grew serious. It could. Technology is a tool, and tools can be turned to destruction. That's why we need teachers. That's why we need guides. That's why we need species like yours, who understand the importance of wisdom over raw power. And that's why, Dr. Parker added, we chose to wake up now. Because the galaxy has learned to balance technology with wisdom. Because species like the collective have shown that advancement doesn't have to mean destruction. Cathara looked around his bridge at officers who had spent their lives believing they were the galaxy's protectors. Now they were learning they had been students all along. But somehow, that didn't feel like failure. It felt like graduation. Captain Morrison, he said formally, the Zephyrian Collective would be honored to learn from our elders. Morrison's smile lit up the view screen. Ambassador Cathara, the human species would be honored to learn from our students. Outside the ships, the stars shone the same as they always had, but the galaxy had changed forever. The children who had played at being teachers were about to become teachers in truth, and the teachers who had hidden in the shadows were finally ready to step back into the light. The age of sleep was over. The age of true learning was about to begin.